Hi everyone, I'm Grandmaster Magesh Panchanathan, and with us we have Grandmaster Sundararajan Kidambi. And today we are going to be discussing chess moves and stories. Hi Kidambi,
Hi. Hello, Magesh.
welcome to the
Hello.
stream. Welcome to the stream. I'm actually very excited about this because I think I have to give them some background. Me and Kirambi go back so many years. I think actually just between ourselves, if you talk about stories, there's plenty. I think right. There are so many stories just between us, but I'm really excited about this stream because Kirambi is one of the. I mean, I really respect him in terms of what his chess knowledge is and what he shares. And the whole idea of this stream is we want to look at positions, we want to hear stories. We basically want to understand chess in a better perspective, right? Not just by looking at moves. That's the whole idea behind this, and I'm very happy to have him. So what do we basically are going to let this flow whichever way it goes, yeah. And I think I will be the perfect amateur questioner for you, Kirambi, right? I think I will be asking questions in the amateur's perspective here.
All of us are amateurs here. There's not a. I'm not using that in a you are as a in an amateur's perspective, and I'm doing it here in expert's perspective. But we'll just have fun, and I agree with you. We'll just take it the way it goes. We'll start some discussion, and mostly I will. Once we start something, I will get connected with one or two stories everywhere. It lead us somewhere, and that's always interesting.
Exactly, yeah. That's what I'm looking forward to because I mean, of course, we're going to study the positions and the great moves. I've seen so many now, particularly since I've started teaching. I think I've gotten exposed more because sometimes I show these positions multiple times. But yeah, I think what I'm excited to see is when we look at some of these moves, you telling us what was going on maybe behind the scenes, and also maybe connecting with the other positions which happened later on or something like that. So that's going to be very exciting.
Sure. So
So, where do we get started?
okay, so we will start with. We wanted to start with some player, and I'm just going by. Let's start with the non-world champion, and among non-world champions, there are a few players who come to mind, and probably we are starting with Keres today, and we look at some brilliant games of his that I remember, and also the stories connecting with those games, with those moves, and also with him in special.
Paul
So,
Keres. Awesome.
for,
Great choice.
yeah, okay, so what I know about Paul Keres, he became a star in quite a young age, actually. I mean, probably he was in his teens or in his 20s in the 1930s, in mid 1930s. He already became a formidable player. He rose to fame by actually he was playing a lot of correspondence chess before that,
Oh
and it
wow.
was not as popular as it is now. But there are some really strong top players like Alekbane and Keres who sort of improved their daring play, maybe you can say calculation and stuff by playing correspondence. And Keres was one of those who started with a very sacrificial line of play. In fact, he was even nicknamed Paul the Second, like Paul Morphy being the first and Paul Keres being the second. Like so,
Did he
that's one of
did he ever
his.
play in a world championship? I'm trying to remember.
He never played a world championship match, but he was always near. Like he was second in interzonal probably more than once. And then he played some candidates matches, which he failed to make it to the finals and play the final tournament against the world champion. But he was just missing it. It
Very narrowly.
was almost there, but he missed it.
Oh, we have
Okay. Yeah. So
Swayams
what?
in the stream. He's saying very attacking player.
Yeah. He started out as a great attacking player, and he himself. I know of Keres only from his works, from his writings. He says he experimented a lot with gambit play, especially in correspondence games, and also he brought it to his over-the-board chess style. So if you see early games of Keres, it'll be really sharp. And in the 1930s, he already beat reigning world champion. Actually, he has beaten 3 world champions who were there at that time. Capablanca, former world champion, Alakin, a former world champion, and Maxiwe, a current world champion. He, in fact, in different tournaments, he has defeated all of them
Wow.
as an upcoming youngster. So he was
That's
just really good.
unbelievable. That's unbelievable that he did all of that and he was never, he never played in a world. He not even given that's so close to being a world champion, he never even got to play in a world championship match. That's so unfortunate. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's probably Keres would rank as the most unfortunate player in terms of not being world champion.
Oh,
Rubinstein and Parsonage also come to mind, but Keres would probably top the list.
absolutely, absolutely. So what do we have? So we're you have any games that you want to start with, Keres or?
Yeah, sure. Maybe we would look at his game against early game against maybe one of these great guys, yeah, whom he beat. That would make it interesting. Either Alakin or Capablanca whom he beat.
Yeah, that would of course make it more dramatic. Of course.
Yeah.
I remember you showing me this Keres Fisher endgame, right? Last, so we had a camp like a few weeks ago, and our students, by the way, benefited a lot from Grandmaster Kidambi's insights into these things. But he came up with a very interesting connection between Keres and was it Keres Fisher and Carlson Caruana, right?
It was Fisher Keres. Fisher was white.
Fisher was white. A beautiful same color bishop endgame, extra pawns. It was A and C pawns or H and F pawn or something like that, right?
Fisher Keres was H and F pawn, and in Carlson Caruana it was A and C pawn. So it was just a sort of a mirror image, just flanks reversed, I should say.
Yeah, that was fascinating. By the way, I know viewers, you are probably not able to realize exactly what we're talking about, but basically what happened was Fisher and Keres played a game in, what was it, 1950, what was it?
I mean, probably should I pace the game and show the position?
Oh yeah, sure. That's a great place to start because I think this is one of the biggest reasons why I want classics, because I'm interested personally because I think all of these things repeat. Understanding this is really, really going to help. So maybe that's a great place to start.
Yeah, maybe I'll just pace the game.
Prerna wants to know if in general we are going to be focusing on attacking play or positional grinds.
I mean,
it could be anything, right?
We will take as it comes, I think.
We're basically going to learn about Keres and we're going to look at some of his games, know a little bit about who he was, and if it takes us to an attacking game, it takes us to an attacking game. If it takes us to a positional grind, it takes us to a positional grind. But looks like right now it's taking us to an end game.
To begin with, yes.
Yes.
Okay. Maybe I should show that particular position. Yeah. You need an end-game position rather than the full game, right?
Yeah, I think that will send the story clearly, right? Yeah, that will be a great place to start. Manish, Hi Manish, welcome. We have a very, very young kid who's watching. Very, very interested in chess, Manish. He comes to all our streams, watches the games, and I think, Manish, you're going to benefit a lot today from Grandmaster Kidambi. This is the first time I'm doing the Lee chess study. Well, actually, I've worked a little bit on this, but not much. There you go. We got the first position. So this one was Fisher Keres, okay.
Yeah. And should we go through this first and pace the next game, or you want?
Yeah, I think if you can just explain what this game is about and why this is significant.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think they played an endgame with rooks earlier on, so it was important for them to, both Fisher and Keres, to, envisage this question much earlier and understand whether it was winning or losing. At that point of time, I imagine it to be quite hard because I don't think this is a theoretical question at all. And this, by the way, I came across in Fisher's 60 Memorable Games where he says this endgame is winning for white if he has the control of f6 square. Like if black gets his king to f6, then it's a draw. But if white can stop black from getting his king to f6, it's a win for white.
That's
and
Well,
Yeah,
I
I
guess
think
the main
for the,
question,
sorry.
sorry,
Hmm.
the main question, I guess, just to bring all the viewers to the right point, is that so same color bishop endgame with 2 pawns, you should be an easy win, yeah. So in this particular case, just to bring everyone up to speed, the pawn H pawn is queening on the wrong corner. So this gives an extra defensive idea for black to simply sacrifice the bishop for the f3 pawn, right? So that is the reason I guess the defensive square is important. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, great. Yeah, that's the point actually. Because if it was not for a wrong color rook pawn, then this position would be easily winning. Because black would have no defense against 2 pawns. Here, you made the point. Black wants to sacrifice his bishop for the f pawn, and for that, it seems that black needs the control of f6 square for the king. His king needs to be on f6 or g6.
Makes sense. Makes total sense. Yeah.
We can quickly go through the game. You can see that how white simply hides this pawn from hides the f pawn from black's bishop by interposing with his own bishop. So, okay, first the h pawn goes to h6 to move back the black's king, and then he simply maneuvers his bishop around this square. Like basically, he wants to prevent bishop takes f5 when we are going to play f5. That's all white's going for. He needs a few maneuvers for this, but it's probably not too difficult.
Makes sense. Yeah, you block the bishop from the diagonal to make sure you push the pawn.
Yeah, first you block it from this diagonal, then black is forced to take his bishop to the c8 h3 diagonal.
Was it not possible to simply go bishop h5 and bishop g6? Why
This
can't we
point,
go bishop h5 and bishop g6? Ah,
I
king
could probably
h7.
go
King h7,
seven,
is it?
no? Yeah, I would play king h7. That's why he plays bishop f5, I guess.
Okay, okay, makes sense.
So now you stop like this, and now it's sort of it makes sense, right? I mean, if I'm going to drive your bishop away from by getting my bishop to g4, then my f pawn will reach f6.
Yeah.
That's why white's next target.
By the way, I just want to make sure that I'm getting the king h7 position clearly to the. We didn't show it. Can we just quickly show that
Yeah,
and
maybe
why?
you can show it right at this moment.
Yeah.
No. Here, bishop h5,
Yeah, exactly.
h7.
And it stops bishop from going to g6. So the point is basically there are two diagonals for the bishop anytime trying to stop a pawn, yeah? And we could just push them into a diagonal that makes more sense for us. That's pretty cool. Okay, so we can go back to the game.
So white's next target is just to drive the bishop away from this diagonal. I mean, such positions, such endgames, which like we are well aware as regular tournament players that white can go on here, repeat a few moves, gain time. Like there will be absolutely no hurry. Even if white knows the winning plan, he can actually play around for a few moves. That always puts the opponent in some sort of bad shape. Like he has to defend a thankless position, but white's never going to give you a draw, but he'll repeat a few times.
Yeah,
just
makes
to gain.
sense. These are one of those torture positions where the defending side is really not doing anything active, yeah? Just waiting.
Yeah, otherwise I don't see any reason that he made this move twice, but then probably he was making some time for the time control. But yeah, he came here, and you cannot exchange bishops because any sort of king and pawn game is lost.
Mm-hmm.
You have to give way for this f pawn.
By the way, during that time, wasn't that like a thing to delay the winning plan by all top players? Because I remember when I was very young, coaches talking about this, saying that if you have a slightly better position, you actually should stretch the game. Is that really a thing?
I mean, it's a very interesting question. Yeah, I mean, going back to that time, I can also think of other reasons for this. I mean, if the coaches taught us this, it means like I think the time we started, there were still adjournments, but very soon it became a thing of past. So when we are going back to Fischer, Keres, these players' times, there were multiple adjournments. Like for example, in this candidates tournament, I'm pretty sure there was more than one adjournment. Like basically, you have an adjournment after move 40, and then you probably can go for 2 or 3 adjournments more after every 20 moves. I'm not 100% sure about this, but there was definitely more than one adjournment. So if you cannot find the winning plan at the board, they felt it was a better chance to for you to do it at your home, right? When you have more time. So in that sense, also it would have made sense for them to keep stretching.
Makes sense. Yeah, you wear your
So
opponent
you just
down.
come and you improve your chances of finding a better plan. You just pause, you gather yourself, your the thoughts, and okay, you're annoying your opponent so many things. Like it's good for you and not good for the opponent.
Yeah, one of the things personally I've noticed when I do that, I mean, I've played some games which are dead equal that I'm just playing around. One of the positives I've noticed was that when you do that, I think you have a better chance of catching your opponent off guard, right? Off guard, because after a point you start making them believe that nothing is happening. They're just kind of moving around, and and that helps, right?
Yeah, this is absolutely important. I mean, you can one player I'm reminded of in this style is just lulling your opponent to almost sleep and then finally coming for the kill. The Skarpov, to a certain extent, Petrosian, and so on. They just move here and there, but actually they are not worsening their position. They're keeping their position intact, maybe even slightly improving. And you tend to think they're like anything that leads to a draw, they're just going around without a plan, and then at the right moment when you are weakening your position more or worsening your position at least a little bit, then they wait for the moment and then strike. So
Strike.
this is a very, very effective style, I think.
Yeah, Pranav was mentioning that in chat as well. Karpov, yeah, that's right. That's awesome. Okay, so I guess moving on to the
Yeah,
game. So we got FI in.
we got F5 in, and then this is a position that's winning. In fact, Geras even resigned here because White's going to get his king B7 and then bishop to E6 and White's winning.
Okay, so basically the king walks all over. Again, one of those passive positions for black where black doesn't do anything. And then the king walks over, and then we play. What do we play? Bishop to E6, yeah?
Yeah, bishop to E6 and we win any king and pawn game basically.
And in the meantime, this king can never go to F8 because of H7.
Yes.
Yep, makes sense.
Because H7 just wins, so he made it look really. But this is not very obvious when you are planning for this position with still rooks on the board and so on. So, I mean, we can suggest the readers and the viewers who are here to actually take a look at this game. It's a very interesting game, the whole game. I just wanted to show it for the end game, but the game itself has lots of twists and turns and so many things to learn from.
But so that's why I guess some of these theoretical endgames, knowing them by heart or just knowing the result is important, yeah? Because there is no way you can calculate, like you said, all of this when you have rook and bishops on the board.
I mean, I cannot say there is no way, right? Because there was always a first, like some people found it. So it would be too extreme in saying there is no way to find this. But
no, my question is, let's say I'm playing a game and I have an endgame and I have, what are my chances to get this endgame to win unless I know this?
You can still think and find if you have enough time. But if you know, you're at an advantage for sure.
Of course, yeah. Much more practical, right? In fact, that's one of the advantages I see in such things, because I have showed this to my students. I have studied these endgames. Not every endgame sticks, right? Not every idea that I'm studying sticks in my head. So, but sometimes the whole fascinating idea of these stories, this endgame you showed me only once. And I totally remember this because you told me a connection, because you gave me a story with it. And that's why I think it's very fascinating for me.
Okay, that's an interesting point. I think we remember very well by connections. Yeah, I mean, people may form different connections, but it's a good place to reinforce your memory with some kind of connections.
Absolutely. So I guess you're loading the next game now, is it? This is over, right?
Yeah, this is over. So I will.
Yeah, you
I
can
will probably load Carlsen's game now.
Sure.
Carlsen
Yeah. So I'll give some background to viewers. So basically, this is the game that was played in 19. What year was this, Kidambi?
1959.
So this was played in 1959, and this almost identical endgame shows up in Carlsen Caruana in like 2012 or something, right? 2012 was it?
2012, yes.
Yeah.
You're right, 2000.
And not only does Carlsen find some of these moves, in his annotations, he also mentions that he was able to find this because of the influence of the Fischer-Keres game. And that's what I found very fascinating, right? Because I think here, Carlsen was clearly be able to, the advantage you're talking about, he had, yeah? Because he knew that influence.
Yeah. No, the thing is, probably coming back to your question, it may not be too difficult to, once we reach this endgame, to analyze and find out that it's winning for any strong player. Like we have 2 pawns, and we know, like we can actually analytically find out that we can queen the pawn and not let him sacrifice his bishop for the f pawn, right?
Mm-hmm.
But can we do it? Like for example, the position that's on the screen, this Carlsen versus Caruana, they're already playing some other position. There are rooks on the board, and he needs every move would lead to lot of multiple different variations, right? So many things to calculate. But if he knows that the final position, that endgame, is leading to a win, it streamlines his thinking process a great deal. So that way, it definitely helps. If this position would be much more difficult to find the intricacies of all the position and find, you reach a final endgame which you are not even sure that you are winning. You have to calculate that as well and find whether it's winning or not. That's going to create a lot of strain, I think. Probably
Absolutely.
this one.
I think that's a great point because I've had a lot of people ask me how come some strong players convert a slightly better position and win, yeah? And some players are really good at converting. I think they say you have to have a good technique. I think good technique is what you just mentioned. Basically knowing where to go, yeah? Because you can obviously figure it out after you get there, but knowing even where to go, I guess in this position, for example, Carlsen probably already recognizes that if he gets to a same color bishop in game, he can pick up those 2 pawns and win, yeah? Right? Which is kind of important, yeah?
Yeah. So that's why I'm giving the position slightly before he came to the actual Fischer-Keres endgame.
Ilam Parthi is suggesting f6.
Yeah, bishop d8, f6 was played. That's right.
Yep.
So basically, when he's going for this calculation, he knows white's going to win both the pawns, and white has control of the c6 square. And Carlsen actually says he knows the method of this win, and not only him, many people know it because of reading about this in the My 16 Memorable Games or wherever. Fischer-Keres. It's a very famous game.
Clearly, the many people did not include me.
It's I think many people would have read it, but maybe it's not easy to relate to it. I mean, so many people would have seen the Fischer-Keres game, but to understand, you're getting the same position with difference in side, reverse colors, reverse flanks. You can't say it's very easy.
Of course,
but
yeah.
it's good if you.
I just want to go back to the f6 moment for a second. I think this is the whole point of the story. I think this is a pretty interesting situation. So, I mean, in a game, playing this move is not so clear at all. Yeah, it's just absolutely not clear unless you know that this endgame is winning. Particularly if I am playing black here, I'm going to keep an eye on the wrong corner, and that's some obvious facts like same color bishop endgame, wrong corner, queening, pawn. These are all like already there, right? So playing this f6. I think it's it's not an easy decision to make, only if you really understand that this wins. And, you are winning b6 and a5, which is not bad. But a very, very interesting point to start with, yeah? Okay, so now I'll go back to the position you left with king b5, yeah?
Yeah, so basically, we actually reached the very same endgame, if you see this.
Just reversed.
Only that first.
A mirror image of the endgame.
Yeah, exactly. It's just flanks are reversed. We have a different color bishop, a different corner, but the winning method remains exactly the same.
I'm going to quote what the comment says by Magnus Carlsen. He says, it only remains for white, this is by Magnus, by the way, it only remains for white not to let black sack the bishop for the c pawn. We have talked about that. And suspect quite a lot of other people. Actually, wait, what did I miss? And he says, suspect a lot of other people knew the winning method from the famous game Fischer-Keres Zurich 1959. That's pretty impressive, yeah.
Yeah, it made his task a lot simpler, right?
Exactly.
To find the win. Yeah. So it was just the same. He pushed his pawn to a6 and c6 and walked the king over, I think.
Actually, this reminds me, in the Keres-Fischer game, I think there was a chance for him to trade on early on, and he didn't do it because the king was reaching to c6. Was that right?
No, I didn't get you. What?
Like, the king reaching the c6 square, which you're talking about, if I remember right...
In that case, f6, right? In Fischer-Keres, it was f6.
It was f6, and I think if I remember right, there was a chance for Fischer to trade off early on into that endgame, but he didn't because the king was reaching to f6, if I remember right.
Yeah, exactly. We didn't show that. That was slightly earlier. But yeah, you're right. He had a chance, but he knew that if he allows Black King to reach f6. It's a draw. So he was consciously avoiding.
I'm already fascinated by myself remembering so much. This, I'm expecting you to tell me this never happened, but so far it looks like I'm I'm not doing so bad.
Clearly, you've like really deeply analyzed this endgame. I was just telling you some game, but you've
No,
given a lot of.
I'm not deeply analyzed. That's exactly what I'm saying. The beauty of this is that I have probably looked at this endgame like any other thing, but this endgame I'm able to remember because I always remember a story. You know, there is Fisher, there is Keres, and then there is, you know, drama after so many years where they say, oh, I don't know if we can call it drama, maybe chess drama as it can get. So yeah, it was good. So now it's winning, yeah, because the king goes to d7, just like we.
Yeah, king goes to d7, and now okay, only a very slight difference. Instead of blocking on the other diagonal, he's going for. I mean, depends on where Black's bishop is. Last time, White was trying to drive the bishop away from this diagonal, but since Black has put it in another diagonal, White's going bishop here, and Caruana is going.
Awesome, very very instructive. So this is the sort of connection I want to make. You know, I remember reading an article. So this is funny in chess.com. I don't remember the author, but okay. I mean, knowing our history, I think even our viewers know a little bit. Is that I'm much more focused on middle game and end game, and I don't focus too much on openings as much, right? Sometimes I think we have had discussions where I literally skip through the openings when I'm seeing a game. I would recognize a game from middle game position, from end game position, but if you show me the same game from the opening position, I would just not recognize it, right? But what I was going to say is I read an article on chess.com about this famous Fischer, the poison pawn, the sequence that, is it called the Argentinian tragedy or something like that? I don't know if you...
It's Gothenburg variation, right? Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
The poison pawn.
That's the...
not the poison pawn, yeah, but it's in the bishop g5 knight off.
Oh, bishop g5 knight off, yeah. So, I mean, I was just bringing a reference there because I read that story and suddenly somehow I can remember that opening variation and that particular idea that Fischer played or analyzed, and which would never stick for me otherwise. But yeah, anyways, just brought it up in terms of reference. So I guess we can move on. What is the next fascinating thing we're going to see about Keres?
Okay, I mean, we started with Keres, and instead of looking at one of his victories, we started with one of his losses.
Well, I think as long as it's instructive, it doesn't count. It doesn't matter.
Okay, now I'm getting a thought. I think people are now very aware of this variation called as Dubov Tarrasch. I mean, he plays Tarrasch defense with c takes d4 early on. There are many games by Daniel Dubov. And I observed some, I mean, I have not analyzed those variations at all, but just by looking at those games, I feel the forerunner to this game, the way Dubov and even Magnus Carlsen has played a few games. I need to look it up, but they've all played a few games. And the very basic game, or the first known game for this idea, goes back to a Keres game, actually from the same tournament, Zurich, but the one he wins, this time against Tal. And Tal was the winner of this tournament. And he went on to beat Botvinnik and become world champion. So you see, Keres was beating, and this is much like he was, like I told you before, Keres was a very strong player by 1935. And this is 1959. And he's beating an upcoming world champion, or a world champion to be in the next 6 months.
Wow. That's fascinating. I'm pretty sure I'm going to learn something new because I have no idea what the Dubov Tarrasch variation is. And I have no idea what you're going to show me. So
I mean, it's the game I'm going to show you is not the Dubov Tarrasch variation, but I'm just going to show you an idea which is currently used.
Okay, sure. Yeah, absolutely. By the way, I think Ilam Paradi is mentioning that the article was Argentinian Tragedy by Gregory Serper. Serper is a good author, I know. He has been writing for chess.com for a long time. Thanks for mentioning that. That is a great article, by the way. If you have not read it, you can Google it and read it up. Okay. So, Keres is playing black against Tal, okay?
Yeah. So they are playing this Tarrasch variation with isolated pawn. And by the way, I think Keres was like, he retained a very great flair for his active play. Like he plays very well with the initiative. So he was like a fearsome exponent of the isolated queen pawn. You, he has produced many games where he has attacked and beaten very strong opponents.
I've always had a psychological problem against IQP, and you were very familiar with that. We're always having discussions where the minute there is an IQP, I'm like, okay, this is bad. This is already bad.
I think that's just psychological, right? It's you had it in your mind, and if you feel it's not a weakness and you've looked at the games where it has in fact been a strength, then
No,
you wouldn't
actually,
feel.
I don't know if you would call it psychological or would you call it style? Because I've seen enough games with IQP winning, obviously, but somehow I think my style makes me think like it's like when I play the Sicilian. When I play Sicilian as white, I always think I'm going to checkmate my opponent, no matter what. I mean, my
Okay.
opponent is probably checkmating me, but I'm still thinking that I'm going to checkmate my opponent. I don't know how some of these feelings come. I've seen enough games where, of course, black is checkmating white, but maybe it's a question of how I handle initiative, and sometimes I think long-term advantages are better. Yeah, that's possible. So we have IQP
Yeah,
here.
yeah, we have an IQP here, and
Well, I guess not yet. For everyone who wants to know what an IQP is, it's isolated queen pawn. And by the way, very fascinating pawn structure. I think probably one of the most interesting pawn structures because most of the isolated pawns are just bad. And in this particular case, IQP has its pros and cons. So it's a very nice, delicate balance. So if you have not studied this isolated queen pawn structure, we strongly recommend you do.
people started discussing about isolated queen pawn right from the times of Nimzovich. In fact, is my system. He's talked about this. So that being an important positional feature. So people have clearly thought about this for a long time. It has been written down by Nimzovich's times. Maybe I'm sure even before that, people had thought about this and had their own ideas about it.
I'm trying to think what other pawn structure would create like a balance. Like maybe queenside majority, maybe hanging pawns, all of these things will have a balance. Yeah, like you have something, I have something. I'm trying to think like that. And I have a question. Mahati is asking, have you played GM Kidambi and who has won more games? Well, we have played so many. I don't know. Would we be roughly equal?
Yeah, I think it would be balanced. I mean, I don't know the exact score and all that, but it
Yes.
could be
So,
balanced or maybe slightly in favor of either of us. I
yeah.
actually have no idea.
We have played so much, Mahati. We have played probably since we were your age, and we have played in nationals, and a lot of international tournaments. And I do remember one extremely important game in which Grandmaster Kidambi became a Grandmaster by beating me in only 23 moves, and I got checkmated. And just letting you know, Grandmaster Kidambi is not known for checkmating people. And yet, I was a victim of that. Yeah.
By the way, now that you give me you made me remember a game that I won. I remember that you crushed me in an isolated queen pawn, in which you had an isolated queen pawn in Bikaner. I'm pretty sure you don't remember that game, but you did.
I
You did.
Bikaner, huh? I don't remember that game so much.
It was
Yeah.
an underage nationals, Bikaner.
Yeah.
You remember?
Yeah. I don't know. I can't. I mean, I'm sure if I see the game, maybe it'll come back to me.
So maybe it's just psychological for you. You have won some games in the isolated queen pawn.
Maybe the 23 move defeat has created such a scar that I cannot forget it. Okay, I guess we'll move on. Yeah. So
Yeah, here, by the way, c takes d4 is the main line of the Tarash defense, which became popular due to Spassky and Kasparov later. And there is a lot of theory here. So bishop e6 is not the main move at all. But the interesting point which I wanted to show was this position. And when I first looked at it, it was fascinating. Okay, you already have an IQP, and it's known that you have to keep attacking chances because an endgame wouldn't be good for you because if white just trades a lot of pieces and he can pile up on the weakness on d5. So you would expect, and you also do not want to give up the bishop pair. So you would expect bishop e7 to be
the most logical.
natural.
Yep.
Yeah. But here, Keres came up with a very dynamic move. He played bishop to b6. He's allowing a trade. He's weakening his pawn structure.
Extremely counterintuitive, huh? This is like the last move. I would call this a positional blunder if my student played this. I'd be like, you gave up a bishop for a knight, and you're giving up the most important bishop, which can set up the blockade. And like you said, isn't it also ruining the pawn structure? Or this
Yeah.
one?
No, it's ruining 8x. I mean, yeah, okay. It's not
Obviously, I
ruining
cannot allow g takes f6, yeah?
wants to. This, I mean, queen takes b6 and bishop f6 would be even worse, right?
That looks ridiculous.
So 8x b6 slightly weakening the pawn structure, and also we have the spin. So it's a very, very deep decision. It's ahead of its times, because you can actually see Magnus Carlsen and Daniel Dubov doing bishop b6 very, very often. Anish Giri, so many top players do this now in the Dubov Tarash, as they call it. But the stem idea for this comes from this, as far as I know. I do not know of any other
so
game.
hopefully after this, we'll at some point pick up one of Dubov's game to see that. Yeah, that will be nice.
Yeah, sure. So he does this, and
So what is
he
the
actually,
point here? I mean, is it because I can play h6 and kick this bishop out?
yeah, that is one thing. At 6, you can take the bishop out, so I'm not going to ruin my kingside pawn structure. Maybe other thing I can think of is white has actually traded a knight, which means he cannot block on d4 easily. Knight is a good blockading piece. So that's been traded off. It's not only that a piece, bishop, you said, is a good piece against the blockade, right? But the knight is also a good blockader, which is not there anymore. There are some dynamic issues with the file being open, the rook file being open. And yeah, but even after this, it looks like a surprising decision for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still not convinced. I guess if will I play as black? No, but that's the beauty of chess, yeah. Because the point is, I guess, I mean, this is also more clear with the computers now. But I'm kind of surprised that this is happening so many years ago. I mean, now I think you can play what we call as anti-positional moves, but the computer says it's equal, yeah. But Keras is doing this so many years ago, which is.
What did you say? I mean, I just love the call went blank.
Oh, okay. No, I was saying that I guess in today's games, it's easier to say that, I mean, or do such moves because the computer might say it's equal, right? But so many years ago, playing an anti-positional moves, you're just anti-positional. Nothing.
I'm not sure if even now computers saying it is equal. I think people are still like do both. They're coming up with it, overriding the computer. But that's just my guess. I don't know.
Interesting. All right, let's see.
So, okay. What's happening here? Yeah, another thing which would be, again, a bit counterintuitive, right? I mean, I'm opening up this for discussion. Like, black is simply allowing white to trade off his knight for the other bishop. How comfortable would we be in doing this? So, Keras was.
Well, if you ask me, I'm more comfortable with this bishop than the previous bishop. So at this point, I might be like, okay, whatever, take the other bishop too. So
yeah, but this again brings in some dynamics. F takes e6, queen f7, e5, rook a8. I mean, slowly. Kasparov has won one game at least. I mean, I don't think the game is in the database. I saw one of his training games. He won this way from Nikitin's new book on Kasparov. About how he was coaching Kasparov. That I don't think that game is there in the database. So he actually won a game against Vladimirov in a training match using this idea.
So how did how did you see it? How do we get to see it?
Maybe you have to get the book, or if I can share the game, I will.
Oh, it's from a book. I missed it. Which book is that?
Nikitin's book, Coaching Kasparov.
Coaching Kasparov. Okay, yeah.
I mean, that is just to show f takes e6, the dynamic idea behind f takes e6. I can also share some other games which you can think of. It's improving the center. It's opening up some files, right?
Yeah, makes
Again,
sense.
I'm not. Portion is better for black. It's just a combative portion. White may even be slightly better. But
yeah, I actually like the chances after f takes e6, knight takes e6, f takes e6 because like you said, it made a little bit more dynamic. Now at least I have a center to play with, right? Without knight e6, I don't know what black has. I mean, it seems to be only that white has something. But if you play f takes e6, the situation looks like black has something to play with, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So I guess Tal did not go for it.
Tal did not go for it. It's not so surprising, right? That he did not play knight e6. He played a3, and now this is a standard strategy, like when playing against the bishop pair, so you exchange one of the bishops of the opponent.
Particularly the bad one.
Yeah, your bad one. You're only one now. So now you see how White has problems in maintaining the blockade, right? And this was brilliant foresight by Keres, I think.
And I'm also seeing some problems with this bishop, yeah, where it seems to be
Yeah,
doing good but not so
it's not
good.
e- it's not at all easy.
Because I typically maybe want to play bishop e3, but then that's too.
Yeah, anytime you play e3, then g5 uh, gives this bishop up. So you're not sure what you're doing, right? There is a
Exactly.
lot of uncertainty here.
No, what I
If you
was
play,
thinking was, I mean, typically I want this bishop to either go to e3, d4 kind of, I mean, sorry, e3 and, okay, let me get rid of this, e3 and then d4, or maybe go like this, yeah? But the problem is there is just too much activity, like you said. I
no,
think
I
this,
have a lot of play on the light squares with my knights. That's the concept of Keres, I guess.
yeah. I mean, at this point, it's beginning to make sense to me that what black is doing and why black, maybe played that.
Yeah, no, but to conceive of this idea like 5-10 moves ago, it's still. I mean,
Yeah.
consider those. This is 1959.
Yep, I totally don't get that. I would probably not have thought about it at that point. So, but now the d4 is clearly in trouble, yeah? So he
So
has
he
to.
moved back, and like this position already, black is more than fine. I think like white's the one who is striving to keep the equilibrium, if you ask me, and that is also very counterintuitive. Looks like white has not done something much wrong, right? But he
Yeah.
is not comfortable for sure.
I mean, at this point, it's obvious, like you said. But the good point that you made is that what did White do that was so bad? It seemed like he played very reasonable moves after trading on b6, and then he's already like now queen d5 is maybe coming. I mean, it's just too active for
Yeah,
black.
Queen d5. Yeah, you'd love to place this position for black for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, I guess at this position, anyone should. I think someone Mahati was asking, what about f3? And I'm going to try to keep up with the chat questions. People will try as much as possible.
Okay, at which point? Which point are we playing f3
I
here?
guess before, yeah, maybe, but knight is under attack. So maybe she missed that, yeah. After rook e4, the knight is actually under attack, so there's not enough time to
We
play
don't
f3.
have time, I mean, or else you have to retreat your knight to a different square,
Yeah.
which also doesn't look so great at this moment.
And also, you definitely never want to take on c6 because pawn takes, right? And then that's like the best case scenario. My pawn structure also is fixed.
If I get pawn takes c6, then that would also justify my a takes b6. My pawn structure is brilliant now.
Yes.
After knight c6, pawn into c6.
Yeah, my students give me that explanation sometimes. Like, this is why I planned 10 moves ago. I did that move. Okay, sorry. We'll go back to the position of e3. He played e3.
Queen d5, you're right.
All tactics flying in now. Yeah.
This is I mean, now just look at the position. Black's pieces are so much better than white's, right? Like queen is so good, rook's doing well. Both knights are doing a very decent job. They can chip in knight e5, knight g4 at some point. Both the rooks are playing. What should I complain about as black?
Could he
And
not
white's
play
still-
knight d4? Why is knight d4 not possible instead of rook d4? It seems like.
Maybe.
But okay, the problem I can notice is that there is a pin.
Rook takes e4, you want knight takes. Is it? And then
No, can I not also do rook takes?
you could do rook takes.
But
yes.
then I'm not
Then
threatening
if I-
anything. I'm not threatening anything. Yeah, knight f3 check, queen takes d5. So I'm really not threatening anything. Maybe white can simply play
Yeah,
rook
do
d5.
bishop c3. I mean, if you do this, I guess. I take. You take back to the rook. Can I play something like bishop c3?
Yeah, bishop c3, right? Makes sense. Because knight f3 is
No,
not a threat.
if you exchange queens, I'm very happy with that.
Well, I could ruin your structure. But knight f3, you
Yes.
simply play queen f3, right? You won't do anything, yeah?
I can simply take queen f3.
Yeah. Knight f3, queen
You go
f3.
rook d6. That's not what you want to do because black's having a lot of initiative. He doesn't want to exchange queens there.
And by the way, if all the pieces get traded, the advantage might go back to white slightly because of bishop versus knight position with the bad pawn structure. You don't want to trade pieces.
Yeah. We don't want that. He clearly wants to keep queens on, and rook d4 is more forcing it.
Okay, makes sense.
And the next part of the game, I think he handled his knights, and basically it was all about power play. He was using his pieces really well. So even after the rook e8, knight e8, this knight was playing superbly.
Yeah, I think the most important piece right now looks like the queen.
So if you look at it carefully, I think white has problems on his light squares throughout. after, I mean, even after knight takes b6, a takes b6. This is a concept that Dorfman talks about square complex, how this imbalance of bishop and knight, it leads to a new problem, right? Like we're generally thinking, okay, bishop is always better than the knight, open positions. But things are not that simple.
Actually,
Bishop,
I was going to say that. That's why this is so interesting because you're right. Mostly, even I would do this personally in my game to always give more weightage to bishop than knight. Yeah, that's that's
yeah,
exactly
but if
what
you
I do.
look at the property of the piece, bishop has one essential problem, right? It's colorblind. It cannot control the other complex of squares. So you have to look at the advantage of bishop over knight also in connection with the bishop pair. If you have a bishop pair, everything seems all right because you control both color complexes. But if I manage to trade one of your bishops, then black has the flexibility to control both dark squares and light squares with his knight, whereas white's bishop would never control light squares. So he's almost always in a minority there. If it comes to if the game plays around light squares, so that's why it's a fascinating imbalance. Otherwise, we can easily say bishop is better than the knight and stop with it in open position. But it's not always the case. There are a lot of exceptions. It has to be decided position to position, I think.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So can I take the pawn now on b6? Or am I instantly losing? Knight e5 or something? Yeah. What is happening?
85, yeah.
Knight e5. What if I come back? But it should eventually lose. Yeah. Some g5, g4 also is possible, right? I think I'm stuck on a deadly
Okay.
pin. Yeah. I don't think.
No, but yeah, it's a very interesting question. Maybe there is some things. Can I do G5, G4? Is that an option? Because you cannot release from the pin.
Yeah. I mean,
That,
I think
right?
multiple ways. I'm also thinking maybe knight e5, bishop e3, and then knight c4. Yeah. That is also probably winning.
No, 95 can't I just take queen takes E5?
Ah, okay. Simply queen takes e5. Okay, okay, okay. So maybe I'll start with knight c4 then, right? What if I start like this?
Knight C4, knight E5. You also prevent bishop E3.
Yeah.
Okay, this makes sense. This makes a lot of sense. Yes. Maybe I don't even have proper squares for my bishop.
Maybe I have to go somewhere like this, which looks not so great. Yeah.
Yeah.
This looks, I mean, has to be wrong. Just a question of looking at it. Okay. So you went on to end this, is it?
So they went on, and actually, I mean, this is one of the favorite games of mine, which became a favorite after I became a strong player. Like when I saw this initially, I did not understand anything. Like 20 years ago, maybe I didn't understand the value of this game, but when I studied this again 10 years ago or something, I was fascinated. I could appreciate the beauty of this concept.
More of this. That's interesting. Actually, a very good point. When we relearn things, we are still seeing new things. I mean, like most of these games and ideas we have seen several times, but every time we see some of these classics or great games, we feel like we have one new one new way thing that we're adding to it, right? I always feel that. I think since I've started teaching, that's another thing for me is that I think my perspective has also changed a little bit. So all the old games that I'm seeing again seems to add some new sense to me. So that's great.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. Every time you see a game, it adds a new dimension to your understanding. Any good game.
Yep.
So Keras actually won a pawn, and in fact, this the further course of the game is also very very interesting. He converted this endgame brilliantly, if you ask me. So this game in itself is deserving a deep study. I
Excellent.
mean, as of now, I'm not remembering the key moments and so on, but this Queen Knight endgame is also pretty fascinating.
I
Let me
guess
try
the
it.
biggest problem is a king weakness for white, right?
Yeah. So actually, black is playing for the initiative almost all the time. So here, this is quite an interesting decision, right? And this was close to time trouble, and Keres does this well. Like he's exchanging his double pawn for your e pawn. E pawn also looks weak, but this trade of b pawn for black's b pawn for white's c pawn is definitely in black's favor because it weakens the king even more.
Mm.
So these kind of things. So, like you said, king weakness was very very important even till almost the end of the game.
So as long as the queens remain on the board, I guess it's not easy for.
Yeah, and queens remain on the board for like a really long time. So I think there was some.
So queen and knight is combining in a deadly way, huh?
this may be the
So,
position.
so I have some queen f2, queen f1. Is it not game over yet? So, is
Yeah,
it?
exactly. Yeah, this is a very, it's a brilliant position. I mean, when I first thought about this position, okay, I mean, I was trying to understand it. Queen f2, like you said, king h3, queen f1, king h3. And I was looking at, okay, Keres has played a different move, but what about h5?
Yeah,
Seems
h5
logical,
was
right? We try to checkmate the opponent.
okay. So I can take here or here. Yeah. So I guess so. If I take on h3, h5, you go queen h3, king g5. How do I mate? How do I checkmate? f6 is mate, is it? Yeah, looks like f6 is mate.
Is made, right?
So I have to
So,
take g5.
no, queen h3, queen h6. No, queen h3, what were you saying?
No,
Queen
queen
h5, what
h3, king
happens?
g5, f6 is automatically mate. Yeah, game over.
Okay, you're mating here already.
Yeah.
So which I cannot play king h5. I have to play king g5,
Now I
right?
have queen f6 followed. I can play queen f6 because if I play f6 now, you won't take the pawn. Yeah, you'll just go king
Yeah.
h4.
No, but the initial thought is if I play queen f6, what will you do? King h5 is forced, right?
Yeah.
And if I do knight e5,
Knight
and
e5.
pawn queen h6 looks like mate.
Okay. So how do I stop queen h6 mate? I cannot give up my. Maybe I can give up my knight with knight e6. But even that looks lost. So knight e6, f e6 should be lost, right? That doesn't
Yeah,
look.
piece up. I mean, I have one pawn, and your king is.
Yeah, my king is still weak,
Because
and
of
also you
knight.
have a passed pawn, yeah, and e6. So it should be.
Yes.
So okay, knight e5 is the critical point. So for everyone, maybe it's a good point to ask. Yeah. So queen f6 check, king here, and knight e5. So this is where you want us to find a move. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So all viewers, this is a good point.
This
Black
is
is
something I
checkmating.
remember from this game because I think I was fascinated when I discovered this after a long. I didn't see this immediately. Thinking why Keres was not playing this.
So someone Veer says he just joined. Okay, what we are doing is Grandmaster Kidambi is sharing some great insights about Paul Keres and his games. We saw a couple of beautiful end games before, and now we are seeing a game in which Keres played something what we might call as anti-positional and completely outplayed Tal in this. And we reach this end game, very interesting position. Black is threatening checkmate on h6, and white should try to find a defense. So let's see what can I do. I cannot move my king, so that's eliminated. Let's go one at a time.
Yeah.
I see
Sure.
two knight checks. Well, no stalemate because I have 3 pawns. For a second I got a little excited. The minute I see king doesn't have any moves, I was like, maybe stalemate. No. Okay, I can. How on earth am I supposed to? Oh, queen d6. Oh, should I
Yeah.
not have called out? Huh?
Queen d6, and white's winning now. So just imagine he has to visualize this before playing knight f2 and all those things, right?
Yeah.
This is incredibly difficult. I'm not by any means saying this is easy, and
I,
white wins here.
I'm totally going to give this position to some of my students to ask to find a win and find a trick because this is the kind of stuff that really, trips them. Because you get a winning position to find the most difficult defending move is what is always tricky. Yeah, Queen d6 is a beautiful defending move. Yeah, that's the only way to stop h6. Nice.
Only way to stop, but it wins. Now white wins.
Because white's up multiple pawns and is it a forced queen trade? Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty much a forced queen trade.
Because you cannot go anywhere leaving the knight. No good squares for the knight, yeah? And look at this knight guarding f3 and guarding f5. I mean, like, it's very well placed for white. Yeah, nice.
So, I mean, this shows the depth of Keres' play, right? He has actually seen this. I mean, it's not that, because it's very tempting. First, we think of checkmating the king on g4, but it doesn't work. And so he actually plays a fantastic line. He does this, and he just takes the pawn, again with the check. So, initially when I looked at this game, I thought it was not so clear because, see, Keres seemed to have a good advantage earlier on. He had the initiative. Then he trades a lot of pieces for getting one pawn. And slowly we trade even more. And we have come to a position where it's just 2 pawns versus 3 pawns. So we can imagine ourselves getting nervous, right? We're just 1 pawn up. And we're not sure that we can win a queen endgame. He may win a knight. but again, we are not sure. So when I first looked at this game, I thought maybe Keres has messed it up a little bit. But later, when I saw this game at a much later point, when I was trying to think of it differently, now I understand maybe my evaluation of the whole thing was like completely improper, because the very important point is White's king is completely misplaced. This 2 versus 3 defense and all that, he needs his king on G2
G2.
to stop the pawns. So any Indian we play, actually we are winning
So
very easily.
does that mean Black is trying to trade queens?
Now Black can trade anything. He can trade queens, he can trade knights, he's still winning very easily because White's king is completely misplaced. So
Interesting. Even if you trade knights, queen in game is pretty winning, is it?
I think it's pretty winning because White's king is not even stopping my fast pawn. So I would march my king up and win it. But it doesn't even come to that because the king still remains weak. I'm just saying that may be a worst case scenario, which will still be.
Makes sense.
Not going to do that. I mean, Black's not going to do that on purpose.
Yeah.
We'll see if it to that he'll do it.
If I was playing Black here, you're right, I would be a little nervous. The only way I would think I can secure a win is to grab another pawn on H2. And that's when I will get mated.
See, at this moment, we'll go a little bit back. He had some chances to get the pawn on H2, but he's not doing that. He's actually trading the A3 pawn, which he considers more dangerous. Because if we go to a queen endgame, I think a passer on the other side of the board might be compensating all of the pawns lost here.
Absolutely.
So this is a very deeply thought out decision. That's what I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think it seems Queen A3 seems pretty safe. Yeah, because you're right. Having that A pass pawn pretty much ruins all endgame chances if you trade some stuff. Yeah, so that's good.
Yeah, and the whole game was good because if you see, the biggest problem for White in this portion is not that he's pawn down, but his king is completely out of the game. It's somewhere else.
So still possible.
And Tal actually did not resign the game. He was playing on till the very end, surprisingly. But overall, I was very, very impressed with the way the game turned out. And Keres took all the pawns and he won without giving any sort of counterplay. But again, here the problem is this king on B7, right? What can you do? You just cannot stop these pawns.
Why is he giving F6? Does he have to?
He doesn't have to, but he's just bringing his king up. King is going to shepherd his fast pawns to a queen, and there is no counterplay basically. Maybe he doesn't have to, but this is a very simple one. I'm just going to push my pawns. What do you do? And now any trade wins. You can trade your knight, you can trade your queen, anything. Whatever you do, you just don't blunder your one of your pawns or two of your pawns. That's the only way you're not winning this.
Yep. Or blunder into a stalemate.
Yeah, it never came to that, and surprisingly, like I said, Tal never resigned this game, but we can quickly see it. He played it for a really long time. I'm not sure if they were playing for multiple adjournments and so on. I don't know those exact comments about here, but very, very impressive game. Extremely impressive game. I like this game even more when seeing it after a long time, and
you see the ideas resurfacing. It seems it kind of gives you even more value to the game, right?
Yeah. So
overall, the quality seems pretty good. Like you said, his calculation has been pretty sound, and the quality of both sides are actually pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah. It was. This is a great game, and that particular trap I showed stuck to my mind because I faced a lot of difficulty in actually finding that. So I was like, thinking for a long time, why is Keres not playing this?
With the Queen D6 variation, right?
Yeah. Right. So
nice. So now do we get to see this influence on modern games like Dubo?
Yeah, no, that is just my guess. I did not have any particular games in mind, but I'm pretty sure I saw Dubov and Carlsen play like this 8x D6 idea in a different portion, but in the same.
Absolutely. I mean, I think something like the Keres, Fischer, and Carlsen Caruana is great, but you don't really exactly see that most of the time, right? You see influence that is, we're similar. And it's not exact.
But Dubo was the one who reintroduced this idea at the top.
The giving up the knight for the bishop, yeah?
Yes.
Pranav was asking, how do we get stalemated? I was joking, yes. So Bhagyas helping me out there. We were just joking about it. Even though I have a very embarrassing story of a stalemate after I became a grandmaster. So I let someone give like 3 pieces and do a stalemate. through the whole story.
Just give me a second. I'll try to find a game because
Sure,
I
sure.
mean I don't know of one offhand, but I'm pretty sure I saw this ideas.
Sure. While you're doing that, I'm going to go back to the most critical point of bishop b6 and just summarize it for the viewers. So those who joined now and didn't see this particular game, so I'm going back to the point. Yep. So this is Keres playing black against Mikhail Tal, and the most interesting point of the game comes here. Black has an IQP, and Tal plays knight to a4. And usually this bishop is supposed to be the most important bishop. And I mean, between bishops, there are always like good and bad bishops. Or even if it's not good and bad right away, there's always a potential good and potential bad bishop. So in this case, usually this would be the bad bishop. If I end up blockading this pawn, this would be the bad bishop. And that really means, in fact, I even like to do something called like a dream position when I play such positional ideas. And I usually say you want to trade these minor pieces. You get these 3 minor pieces and you're able to blockade and play against the bad bishop. But here he plays a shocking bishop to b6. This is definitely not like I was telling Grandmaster Kidambi. If one of my students did it, I might say positional blunder. you just gave
Yeah,
up
I
the
got it from two box. Do you want me to?
Oh,
paste
yep,
it?
yep. So let me just wrap it up. So what Keres is doing is giving up knight for a bishop in an open position, in a position where IQP you're supposed to play for initiative by not trading. So that was very counterintuitive, but very, very instructive. Sure.
And but just
Yeah.
exchange the board. Yeah.
No, we're done.
This
We're
is-
done there. No, we're done there. Go on.
Okay, no, just to show this idea, you can take
Yeah.
this game. I mean, randomly I got this game. So this is the Dubov Tarash where we take c takes d4. But just see this
And white
idea.
is Mamadiyaro, huh? Mamadiyaro is playing white against Daniel Dubov.
I mean, you see this, right? This is Keres' idea. In a different setting, of course.
Of course. So can we go back a little bit? Can we go back? I just want to see where. So this starts with, of course. So he could go bishop b7, b6 and c7 if he wants to, or he could go back bishop e7, yeah? Which seems more logical.
This position we need to think actually because he has provoked c takes d4 and he needs to defend d5. So I don't know if we can go bishop back.
Oh, the pawn is just hanging right away. Of course, you're right.
So this is a completely different position. It's not the same position, but I'm just
But the
saying
idea,
this
of
is-
course, yeah. No, makes sense. But in general, the idea seems to be that black. I mean, even if the pawn is hanging, I would still think that it is clearly about not trading pieces, right? I mean,
Or maybe we should look at this position. Would you rather save the bishop or give it up on a6, on b6?
yeah. Now I could just play bishop c7, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
If I
Because
want
now
to.
the pawn is also not hanging. You could play bishop c7.
Exactly. So maybe some bishop g5, castle bishop g5 ideas eventually will. But okay, I can play a bishop e6. But yeah,
So,
this is also quite
this was
annoying, I
the-
guess.
This was the game in 2019, and I thought it was an echo of Keres' idea, right?
Beautiful. Can we see a little bit more? I want to see if this
Yeah,
bishop
he had
also-
dynamic compensation always. Black was doing fine. Like, okay, he even started playing h5. He's focusing on the king side, typical play by Dubov. But
It's funny.
what he was doing-
I mean, was it? I mean, I would really not understand this. I mean, like, all of this seems anti-positional to me. What is going on? It's like he played 8 v6, now he's playing h5.
He's pretty sure White's going to castle short. He cannot stay with the king in the center, and he cannot castle long because of.
Okay,
open
what
h5.
if I play bishop g5 or something here? Let's say I do this. I'm trying to understand what is the idea of h5. This is very deep, huh? Man.
No, h5, h4. He wants to just push the pawns.
No, but I mean, I can easily stop that, right? I mean, he doesn't even have a dark squared bishop.
I can go queen d6.
Queen d6, and then let's say a castle after that. You
Also, actually, I mean, I can play. Yeah, I can release the pin. I can play bishop g4, rook d8. I'm playing for activity basically. It's the same idea what Keres played. He's just not bothering about the pawns. He wants piece activity.
the same idea that I don't seem to understand.
No, but it's very counterintuitive.
I know, yeah, exactly. The beauty of this is extremely counterintuitive, yeah, because not only is weakened the king, like queen side, he's playing h5. I mean, it's not like the h5, h4 is so natural. The rook is on h8 or something. It's like, I mean, it's really no attack or anything after that.
But seeing this, but Black seems to be okay because he has a lot of initiative for compensating for the static defects in the position.
Yeah, I would think the knight on b3 might not be great. Yeah, okay, you can go for a blockade, but yeah, maybe that's what it is. So Saubhagya is asking, why not take with queen b6? Isolated pawns are bad, right? Oh, isolated double pawns. Okay, I guess he was talking about taking back with the queen. After knight b6. Why not queen b6 is what he's asking. I
Yeah,
guess.
if you see, Keras also had this chance, right? He was not doing AB6 gives more dynamism to black in this position by opening the file for the rook.
Yeah, I guess I castle and I go bishop e3, which is probably what I can imagine. Or
Yeah, yeah.
should I be worried about d4? If I castle, can black go d4?
But you can even start with bishop e3 if you
Yeah.
need it.
Well, bishop
Yeah.
e3, if queen b4 check, I can just go queen d2, huh?
Yeah, you can trade queens. There's no problem. Endgames are not what black is hoping for.
Exactly. I think if you take, I just simply take back and then put the bishop here. Seems like it should be pretty straightforward. Even though f3 is always a little tricky, yeah, because I want to stop knight e4, but I cannot play f3 because of the e file counterplay.
No, if you trade queens, then the game becomes entirely different. I can consider f3 and all that. But
Just f3, king f2 also, yeah, because there's no dark square bishop.
no, but here h5 was completely just took me by surprise. Also,
Well, absolutely.
Definitely.
I had played h5. I'm trying to see what is going on. I mean,
I saw this game first. If just imagine black had a rook on h8 and white castle, then h5 makes some sense because you want to open the h file, right? Opponent has castle and you want a rook file open for your rook. In this position, white has not castled, but black has castled and still he plays h5. So
yeah, exactly. So let's
It's
see
not
how
an
he
easy
justifies this. I want to see what is. Yeah, let's go further. I want to see how it went.
no, he was just playing for
So you managed to push all the way to
squares
h3.
here. So by pushing his pawn to h3, he secured a square for g4 for his bishop.
We have
He was
Coach
playing-
Robert here on the stream. Hey, Coach Robert.
But this position seems to be very dynamic and unclear, right? It's not like you won't say this is white is better. White also has problems.
Yeah. Now I can see what is going on again because I think the pawn ended up going all the way to h3, and
Yeah.
I mean f3 has happened. Yeah, this is this at this point it seems more.
No, but what I meant about, I've not looked at this game in any sort of detail, but my idea was Keras' idea is resurfacing after so many years.
Yeah, well, I guess which is the beauty of, the whole idea, I think, of the stream also. To me, that's exactly what I want to learn myself, and I want the viewers to learn as well, right? I think I'm learning a lot as we go through this. By the way, the background for all of you guys is we have talked chess for like countless number of hours, me and Grandmaster Kidambi, and I think it's just fascinating to look at a lot of those things here. So, and I feel like the whole thing we thought about is that I want to learn some cool things like what we learned today, and then all of you can also learn from it. But the most important thing is all of these ideas and plans just didn't show up like one day out of nowhere, right? And there are so many things that have already been done. So if you study a lot of these classics, you actually learn a lot, and I think that influences your play in a very positive way, right? That's probably my main main goal for my students or viewers to see this, right? But there are funny things where you taught one of my students in a camp about an idea, and I was actually very, very happy. He comes back to me saying, I did what, who was that player? I'm trying to remember. Was it Pulgevsky? I don't remember who that was.
I think you were talking about this
Portish, yeah. So my student comes back to me and says, oh, you know what? I used this Portish's idea, but somehow got crushed. And I was like, wow, I'm super impressed. What was this idea? And then, of course, he misused it or misunderstood it. But it's still great, though. I thought the fact that he's even trying to connect it was what, to me, was extremely important. I mean, he's sitting in a game, playing a game, and he's thinking what Portish did. That to me, is great. So,
okay, yeah. That was my purpose of this game. I'm not sure what happened. The game ended in draw, but I think Black played quite dynamically and he was all right all the while.
So he sacrificed the pawn, but clearly has enough compensation, yeah?
Yeah, looks like. There was always some uncertainty about White's position, right? And that's fascinating as a Black player. You're not just dryly playing for equality or something.
But the funny thing is, throughout this time, he was allowing bishop f6 pretty much, right?
Yeah, maybe he's not. Maybe the fact that we are thinking bishop takes f6 ruins our pawn structure, maybe flawed understanding. Maybe it's completely fine.
No, maybe we're thinking knight for bishop, double dice-sided pawns, pushing the pawns on the side. All of this are just turns out to be just good. I think everything he ignored in this, yeah, for dynamic play. Again, a classic example of dynamic play versus like long-term advantages. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this happens many times in this particular opening, and not only this opening, Dubov plays a lot like this. So he values dynamics a much more, I think, and that's interesting to see because he also wins a lot of games like this.
Interesting. So now, of course, now it looks like what is going on? Bishop f3. So I cannot take on f3 because of rook e1. So rook takes e8, rook takes e8. I don't have checks here. Or rook e5.
Yeah, you are otherwise you are running into rook e1, queen f1 mate. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's right. If you play rook takes e8, looks it's almost lost. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
that's good.
from nowhere the white king is completely open now. I'm always thinking the black king on g8 is in bad shape, but looks like the white king is on trouble. So you played rook e5, huh? So now just draw, is it? Because if I take on bishop, we're getting checkmated with queen d5 and queen g2, yeah? So, mate.
Amazing position.
Bishop on h1.
So now you got the idea why he played h5.
Yep. The h5, h4, h3.
On g2.
The deep idea. He's on move 30. He stopped white from taking on h1.
No, it's completely crazy game, right? Like, but it's not this game. It's not some random players playing this game, but Shah Mohammed is white and Dubov is black. So strong players play this. They have some idea at least. It may be wrong, but they are not playing bad moves on purpose or anything.
In chat, Mahati is saying Dubov Anand. There's a blitz game, Dubov versus Anand, in which he does a dynamic kingside attack. Yeah, I'm sure Dubov has some great games. I don't know this particular one.
Dubov's style is like this. He plays
Dynamic chess. So I guess after e6, what happens? He plays queen d5, huh? And then
So
now
white
there's
is in
just
perpetual check.
yeah, just check. So just queen h6, queen here is a draw, yeah. Cool, very very interesting games, huh? I like. So we went past our 1 hour, which is good. We didn't even realize that. that is just awesome. So we saw a bunch of Paul Keras's interesting one end game and then one interesting middle game, and the influence of that has on today's play. So I think that was a great start. I mean, we want to do this more often. We want to learn from your knowledge, Grandmaster Kidambi. I think our students benefit a lot. I see a lot of our students, young kids, chatting. I really like that because I really want them to, know the value of Paul Keres. Probably a lot of them don't even know who Paul Keres is. So, Coach Robert is saying, you missed out. I mean, we do have the notifications. Hopefully that goes out on time. I don't know, Coach Robert. I don't know what happens there. But, don't worry about it. We will plan to do this more often. The goal is to, of course, keep this series going where we learn about lots of these players, not just Keres. Maybe even more about Keres. Wherever it takes us, right? That's the whole idea.
Yeah, no fixed thing in mind, but Keres is a fascinating player. We are not even touched anything.
Exactly. I mean, we barely did anything, but
yeah.
But that's how chess is going to be. Yeah? No matter how much we do, there is going to be an ocean ahead of us. So, but I think it went exactly the way I imagined it would. So that is really nice because I just wanted to learn something and have an open discussion. No real agenda. Just learn something, not just about the game alone and how he played or what he did. So, yeah, that was pretty good. Saubhagya is saying, normally we know only the super GMs and the present Indian players. That is true. I think this generation probably knows a lot more about, top players right now. not so. I don't know. Do you think they're still studying classics? I know Carlson clearly is doing that, or did do that. But the young GMs right now, do you think they're actually studying or improving based on studying classics? Because when I grew up, that was like the big thing, right? When we grew up, everybody would be like, study classics if you want to get better at middle game. Do you think that's still the case?
Uh, I'm not sure. I mean, you cannot reduce everything to one right approach. So some people learn by reading the classics. Some people maybe do other ways. They learn by experience. They learn from blitz games, roulette games, and so on. Like when we grew up, it was a big taboo to keep on playing blitz on, not even online for the board, right? You
Well,
cannot
Blitz
constantly.
Blitz was bad.
Yeah. So it's no longer considered bad. So
Of course,
I don't
yeah.
think there is a right or wrong approach. I think some people would be still learning from classics for sure because it's not a bad thing, but you can't say this is the only way to improve.
Of course, yeah,
I
yeah,
don't think.
no. I mean,
Yeah.
definitely, I will totally agree with you. There is no one way, yeah. Everyone learns in a different way. And these days, like you said, I've seen kids who get really, really good playing Blitz a lot, yeah. So, all these top
Yeah.
players doing, I
You can
mean,
play blitz and bullet and still improve. So I have no right or wrong suggestions. I
well,
like this. So
I would
and
like to. I would like to add a disclaimer. I don't want all these kids going to their parents saying, Coach Magesh and Grandmaster Kidambi is saying play Blitz. That's not what we're saying.
no, I'm not also telling the other extreme. Like
Exactly, yeah.
if Nihal Sarin is playing blitz and improving, doesn't mean that everybody it
Can.
suits that way, right?
Exactly.
So
He has done it. There is no one method, is what we are trying to say. It's like multiple ways you could study and improve, spend time and improve. Absolutely, yeah.
I think it's a good idea to experiment with a variety of stuff, see what you like, what works for you, and so on.
Absolutely. Sounds good. I think on that note, we will probably end this. I think thank you all for watching this. We will. I don't know. We don't know if we can schedule the same time every week. We will put out a schedule very soon. But the idea is we want to do this on a regular basis every week. We'll put out that schedule. Thanks for watching the stream, and thank you, Grandmaster Kirambi. I will.
Thank you, thanks everyone, thanks Magesh. It was a good experience watching this game.
Well, we learned a lot for sure.